She's experienced the dark side of life and never thought she'd survive to see 16.
Why would anybody want to live like that? It's not fair.
Who is this modern hero?
I am Dr. Arabia Mollette. This is my story.
Ever since she was a little girl, Arabia had one very big dream.
I've always wanted to be a doctor since the age of 5 years old.
What was it about being a doctor that you always knew, this is why I want to do it?
I've always felt that a lot of doctors didn't come from the community I came from, so they couldn't really relate to people like me.
Arabia grew up in the projects of the South Bronx, a neighborhood that was in the grip of a widespread drug epidemic that was tearing her family apart.
My family was definitely affected by the crack epidemic. My father was pretty much absent in my life. There was times I did see him sleeping on the street. He was just so high to the point where that he didn't recognize me. It was hard seeing that.
Arabia's mother was left to care for their kids on her own, but she suffered from severe depression.
This one particular morning I woke up and I remember I walked into the room and shook my mom and I said, Mommy, wake up, it's 6 o'clock. I remember I saw a bottle of pills on the floor and I remember seeing a letter saying that she didn't want to live anymore.
Arabia's mother survived, but had a long road to recovery.
My mother was so warped in terms of everything that was going around her to the point where I didn't have my mother either. So pretty much my siblings and I, we had to pretty much raise ourselves. When your family is in crisis, what do? You turn to the streets.
At just 15, Arabia wound up living on the streets and did whatever she needed in order to get by.
What was that like, being homeless?
I remember just holding drugs for certain drug dealers, trying to make a little money, and then watching people around me just fall by the wayside, either getting killed or going to jail.
Despite everything going on around her, Arabia knew education was her best chance of survival.
I had two lives. There was the street life and the school life. Once I was in school, I was in school. I wasn't playing around. I was in talented and gifted classes. So I've always excelled academically. It's just that my home life was just a totally different situation.
Just 15 and seeking love and stability, Arabia found herself in an abusive relationship with a much older man.
This was a life-changing moment when I met this guy. And that's when things actually got even worse after that. I remember we got into an argument, and I remember he punched me, and this is when he started beating me, and his friends were there. And he was beating me, and he was screaming at me, he was choking me out, and I just remember feeling like I was gonna die. All I know is that he pulled his pants down, and he raped me right in front of his friends. 2 weeks later, just went to the doctor and I found out that I was pregnant.
In October of 1997, Arabia gave birth to a happy and healthy baby boy named Jameek. Shortly after, she was offered full scholarships from several colleges and hoped it was a turning point.
I said to myself, okay, this is my opportunity to get out and start life all over again. I just wanted my child to have the best life possible.
But on February 19th, 1998, life as she knew it was about to come to an end when she received a phone call from a local emergency room where her son had been admitted.
My son's eye sockets were completely broken. His skull was fractured in several places. His bladder was crushed. He had several broken ribs. And I wanted to throw up. How can anybody hurt a child?
4-month-old Jameek had been severely beaten by his father, and his doctor prepared Arabia for the worst.
And he said the chances of your son surviving is very slim, and if he survives, he's going to be a vegetable. And I remember the doctor cried. Like, this was an older gentleman. I remember he cried and I cried. Yeah, that was right there when his heart gave out. I held my son, dead body in my arm, and I just cried and I cried. It was just really sad. It was just really sad, and I just knew I wanted to die right there. I wanted to die.
Jameek's father was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 11 to 22 years in prison. Arabia tried to pick up the pieces and graduated high school. After some trial and error, she ended up at Hunter College. But just when things started to turn around, her 19-year-old sister was shot and killed.
That was a low point. That was a real low point. It was so sad because she was actually going to school in Albany for college, and I couldn't understand like what happened, why did she get killed? I remember I spoke to this particular ER doctor that did his best to save my sister's life. I asked him so many different questions, and he said to me, all the questions that you have asked me so far, this is something that most people wouldn't have asked. You should really consider becoming an emergency physician. That was a confirmation for me right then and there to move forward and get my life together and actually pursue this dream of becoming an ER doctor.
Arabia graduated from Hunter College in 2004 with a degree in psychology and began pre-med courses at Westchester Community College. While there, one of her professors realized her potential and nominated her for a biomedical research program for minority students at SUNY at Binghamton University.
I got accepted, and I actually worked with some of the top researchers, scientists. I mean, it gave me a chance to feel even more confident in myself to pursue this dream of becoming a physician.
She began looking into medical schools, but the cost of simply applying was more than Arabia could afford. That's when a friend told her about a program at the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba. There was just one small problem.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, I did not.
But you're like, I'm gonna do this anyway.
Right, because when you're hungry for something, then you're gonna do whatever you can to obtain your goal. And I was not afraid of it.
Arabia received a full scholarship, enrolled in Spanish immersion classes, mastered the language in just 3 months, and in 2012, finally got to call herself a doctor.
The moral obligation of that scholarship is for us to come back to our communities and to provide health care to our people.
Now Dr. Mollette proudly works as an ER physician for the people of Brooklyn, not far from where her dream was born all those years ago.
Almost every patient that comes through those doors, they kind of remind me of where I was at in my life, and they remind me of my family, and they remind me of so many different situations, and so it's easy for me to relate to them.
Arabia is even taking her knowledge to the world of radio with her podcast, The Visit with Dr. Mollette, where she answers questions from listeners who may not have easy access to healthcare.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Arabia Mollette.
Everywhere I go, somebody always have a question for me to answer. People should feel comfortable inquiring more about their health, whether they think it's silly or not, it doesn't matter to me. Being a doctor is like being a teacher.
Arabia has also found happiness outside the hospital walls and is proud to report her family finally found the path to healing.
Is there a happy ending?
It is. My father, he has his master's in education, so he teaches for the New York City Board of Education, and he's clean for over 27 years. My mother, after going for help and getting her life together, she actually became a medical assistant.
I love that. Maybe you inspired that.
I was inspired by my parents, and I think I inspired my parents.
Arabia has been through the depths of despair and found strength when so many would have lost their way. Now she wants nothing more than for her painful journey to bring others hope.
What quality do you think that you possess that allowed you to overcome all of the gargantuan hurdles that you faced in your life?
Have faith. I want people to have faith in themselves. You can do this. You know, if this is your dream, no matter what your circumstances are, you can do this. No matter what happens, that you can, you shall, and you will become the person that you desire to be. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And if more people will talk about that, I think that we can save more people. I really do believe that, honestly.
Follow Modern Hero TV on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.